Does it ever feel like you and your body are just not on the same team? Like, no matter what you do, you cannot get out of your own way so that you can have the body and the confidence that you really want. If you are a high achiever who has been stuck in that perfectionist loop where you are either killing it and on point, or you're discouraged, frustrated, and not taking care of your health at all, this is the podcast for you. Today, we have the honor of welcoming Robin Hauser to Conquer the Day. She has been a client of ours at the Fitness Project for the last 6 months, and she comes from a pretty unique perspective. In her work life, or her mission work, Robin is a licensed mental health therapist, a certified clinical trauma professional, and a dedicated women's empowerment coach. As you go through this podcast, you are going to hear her speak some really powerful words of encouragement over you, especially if you've been stuck in that perfectionist loop I talked about a moment ago. Now, with over 20 years in the mental health field, Robin has spent her career helping people, especially women, overcome deep-seated trauma and limiting beliefs that hold them back from being the fullest version of themselves. From working in emergency shelters and trauma facilities for children to serving as a private coach, she has seen firsthand how transformative it can be when someone begins to reclaim their self-worth and start to actually prioritize their own sense of well-being, even with a crazy life or with a lot going on around them. But again, Robin isn't just a powerhouse professionally, she's also a living example of self-care. 6 months ago, when she was really struggling with her own health and well-being, battling Hashimoto's, and really feeling the physical, mental, and emotional tolls of poor health, she came to us and she kind of laid it all on the table. She said, I don't really feel comfortable. I'm very uncomfortable asking for help right now, but I need help. And so she invested in herself. She invested in pulling our team in at the Fitness Project, which she talks about at length. But that's really where she started to transform her whole mindset around self-care, taking care of herself. And she unlocked an entirely new level of confidence for herself and success in her business, which we do talk about today. So in today's conversation, what you can expect is that Robin is going to share her journey of stepping out of survival mode and really into a life where self-care fuels both her personal and professional growth. She's going to dive into why self-care isn't just something that we can hope to have one day when we're not quite so busy, but how it's absolutely a must, and it totally changes the way that you treat and see yourself, as well as how other people treat you. Now, her story is one of oh my goodness, her story is amazing, but it's one of courage, resilience, and total transformation. And she shares, like I said, she puts it all on the table. She is very vulnerable in this episode. So make sure that you find her on social media, give her some love, and really enjoy and absorb all the encouragement and empowerment in this episode with Robin Hauser. So without further ado, let's welcome Miss Robin Hauser to the house. Welcome to Conquer the Day, Robin.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Good to see you guys. I feel so honored, truly, to even be in this space with you guys and having this conversation.
I'm excited. It's super inspiring what you've done, but I also feel like there's so much that even I don't know about what has transpired in 2024. So I'm very intrigued to pull this apart with you and talk about your journey and just all the things you've learned about yourself, how it's applied to your business. And I think it'll be a really helpful conversation for people just to see what's possible when you take care of yourself and you lead by example.
Definitely transforming. Yes, in all the spaces and places. Yes.
Love it. Well, so to kind of wind things back, where were you health-wise at the beginning of your journey? Can you kind of walk us back to before you joined the team? More importantly, what was going on in your life? What was going on in your body? What was going on in your health that was causing conflict and really wearing you out?
Definitely realizing, I think the biggest catalyst for me was I had already received a diagnosis of the Hashimoto's, which gave me some direction of like, okay, it's not lack of willpower, it's not lack of discipline, it's not I'm not being mean enough to myself or restricting myself or pushing myself enough, like all the high level achieving, like this is how we move forward in life. We just put our heads down and go. I had noticed for at least over a year, I was pushing against myself. And at 5 years old, I remember having like the Get in Shape Girl cassette with the mat. And like, I love to work out. I grew up in a swimming pool. I grew up biking and hiking. I was fit. College, the sorority, I was the one that was carrying the heavy stuff in and out. I've always had a strong body. I used to like to work out in the mornings and at night after work to wind down. Like it wasn't that I didn't like this. It wasn't that I didn't know how to take care of my body like physically in that way. But then as I got older, lots of babies, pregnancies. I think I was pregnant on and off for over 10 years. And just going through that period of time as I was getting older, as in my 30s, your body changes. And finally having a chance after all that time to be like, oh, okay, now it's my body again. It's not for babies. We have to figure out how to live together. I was having a hard time where my joints would hurt, my muscles would hurt for recovery. And it wasn't well, I'm not pushing myself hard enough. I would do it, and I'd be like, well, I just spent an hour on the treadmill, or I'm restricting food, or all the things that I thought it was how it's supposed to be, that all or nothing thinking, and nothing was working. And I felt like I was fighting my body. So then I found a great doctor. I did the blood work. I got the diagnosis. Okay, this makes sense now. It's not me being lazy. But then what? Then what? And I think having my birthday and turning 45, I was like, okay, I've lived probably at least half, if not more, of my life than I will. What am I doing with the rest of this? Am I going to continue fighting my body and feeling old? I have a 6-year-old. How am I going to keep up with a 6-year-old? And I had it in my face taking care of my father who has dementia, and he would fall. And Lindsay's the one that posted something. She's like, these are the workouts you need to do, like to make sure your body is prepared to get older. This is why we do the squats, or this is why we have our muscles so that you can push yourself back up. And I was like, oh, somebody who's educational, this makes sense. And then, Brian, I know you've talked about like the 1%. And I was like, oh, it's not all or nothing. Like this is possible. This can be done differently. So, and then I think the story of where I was with my daughter and we were in a food court. For goodness sakes, how many restaurants can you get in a food court? And I was like, this will be perfect. All of us can find something. I could not, my daughter was worried about me, and like watching her not know if I was okay, like, no, that's not her responsibility. That's a whole different level then. Like she knows now that I need to figure this out for myself. So I couldn't find anything to eat. I knew anything that I ate was going to hurt my joints, make me tired, produce brain fog, all the things. And I was like, okay, I've read books, I've signed up on apps, I've tried to do it myself, and I'm in the same place as I was 4 months ago. Like I have to have help. I have to have somebody who can speak to me, and I have to be willing to say like, I don't know. I can't figure it out.
So that food court incident, right? What was so challenging emotionally about it? Was it that you knew that all the foods that you were going to eat because of everything you had been going through with Hashimoto's were only going to be harmful for your body? Was it that you were trying to focus on weight loss? Like what made it so hard for you to feel like you didn't have control or you didn't have a say in what you could put in your body to keep you healthy?
Yeah, at this point, I was way past weight loss. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great because I also knew my joints were struggling from the weight. But the biggest thing was like anything I eat in here, is I have a 2.5 hour drive home with children in my car. What happens then if I suddenly my energy stores tank out because the carbs are too much for me? What happens with the brain fog? What happens then later in the day when I still have other stuff I have to do, but now my joints are hurting and my muscles are hurting because my body can't move because I've just put something that in me that my body does not like and is not doing well with. And I picked out teriyaki chicken. I was like, I won't eat the rice. 5 bites, I had heartburn. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. There's nothing. I just need to get home and I can eat some eggs. Eggs are safe. And that was it. That's what I was reduced down to. And I said, this is not how to live. Like, this cannot be.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear you recount that whole experience, not just the food court, but all the way back, because there's almost themes that come up as you're explaining it that would suggest it's hard for you to ask for help, or maybe you didn't want to have to ask for help. But when I think back to my experience of talking to you, you were so open and receptive. So I'm curious, what was kind of under the hood there that maybe made it hard to accept that maybe you do need some help with this?
Um, it's a theme I've noticed with high achieving women, especially. And if there's any kind of like trauma history in there, it's admitting I don't know, and that's a vulnerability. And historically, if you're vulnerable, who takes advantage of that? How do you know who you can trust? Who can you place that vulnerability and let them take over that and know you're not going to be hurt and that you're going to be guided in a way that's not more failure and shame and guilt. And this is, you're already so hard on yourself of, I'm not doing it all correct, or I should be doing better. And that like constant drive. And then to say, like, oh, so let me volunteer myself to expose my vulnerability to somebody that is potentially going to be like, well, this is where you're doing it wrong. This is where you're not pushing hard enough. This is where all the things. And that's a big leap. That's a big, like, okay, I really can't do it by myself. So then who do I find? And literally, Lindsay, it was just that. I think it was in Messenger. We had a conversation and you were just like, I just, here's some simple things and here's some videos and here's some podcasts and here's why you would want to focus on things that would be helpful for you as you're getting older. I was like, I don't even know what workouts to do anymore. I don't know what's right. And it was simple. You were just like, here's the things, like if you're going to take the time to do it, these would be the things you'd want to focus on because this is what's going to help you like down the road, long term. And what I was facing and fearful of, just like I said, watching my dad.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So I know that you are well experienced with helping women heal from trauma, but I actually don't know your story. So I'd be curious if you'd be open to sharing like what got you into that work or how, when you say specifically like past trauma also would have kept me from wanting to be vulnerable, as much as you're comfortable sharing, how would that potentially impact someone from reaching out for help? And I'll tie it down. That is the question. But I think that this floats under the surface for a lot of people because you can see the patterns of fear of failure. You can see like they failed in the past, someone maybe burned them that they trusted, even if it was in the fitness realm, like they hired a coach and it didn't go well, or they felt judged, right? So there are those types of experiences, but I'm curious to hear more about your experience and just what makes you weave that in from the get-go.
Absolutely. Um, I would say, I mean, in a nutshell, I've told everybody I did not really learn anything getting my master's degree and working with teenage girls who are brutally honest. Are they like, were you coloring while you're getting your master's degree? Maybe I was. I was not, but I got into therapy. I knew I wanted to do this since I was in the 10th grade. People would just come and talk to me. Um, I've always wanted to help. It's always been a big thing for me to, if I could be the one person that made somebody else feel seen on earth and know that they matter and they can carry that with them, if that keeps them from committing suicide, if that keeps them from going down a path of desperation, whatever that is, drugs, anything. It's if I can be that for somebody, like I want to do that. I want to be that person. Um, I was adopted, only child. I'm not like my parents. My father is Middle Eastern. I do not look like my parents. Um, and then I was molested when I was 5 by a male babysitter. My parents both had mental health, and really, I was raised in an environment where my father had a genuine belief that and operated with women are for men, girls are for men. That's their purpose. And everything that comes with that. So growing up, that even working out as I got older and into my 20s, it was this is for everybody else. This is so I look good for everybody else. I really didn't have ownership over my body. Um, I was married and that lots of learning, but emotionally abusive. He was also again had a lot of mental health and I'm gonna save everybody. Nope. But that was my goal. So that's why that made sense. And then coming out of that and trying to find myself and dating, and again, not having great self-worth because I am now in a failed marriage. I'm now divorced. I am damaged goods through and through. Not really, but that's where my head was. Started dating, definitely dating the wrong people, date rape, got pregnant, and then had that baby and gave her up for adoption. And that was a whole journey. And so then found my husband. Thank you, God. Um, I had to do the work though. I'd gone to therapy and I was like, I've got to get my head straight. And that was the biggest turning point for me in that sense of like, oh, I do have value. I have to figure this out. We then, our first pregnancy, I miscarried, got pregnant, had our daughter. That was great. She had a knot in her umbilical cord. And when she was delivered, the doctor said she should be dead. Then we had our second one, and he was turned the wrong way, and the umbilical cord was coming out wrong, and we almost lost him, and we had him. Okay, we're done, right? No, my husband can sneeze on me and I get pregnant. Does not matter if I'm birth control or not. Um, so after that, I had a miscarriage, and then I delivered two stillborns after that, even. And the last one was 30 weeks. And when I delivered that baby, it was an emergency delivery. And I did not know at the time I had blood clotting disorder. So I bled out and flatlined, and then almost had to have a blood transfusion. Still had a DNC. Went home and I was like, we are done. We are done. We are all done. And again, it was the guilt, my body. It's not doing what it should be doing. I can't bring a baby into the world safely. Everything felt like a betrayal. I felt like a failure, all of the things. So it's like my body and I still are not working together. This is not for me. We still don't have a great relationship. And then I went into dieting. I looked like I'd had a baby. I didn't have a baby to show for it. So looking in the mirror was really hard. Like, this is not my body, but it is. And that was hard to walk around with. And so I did the deprivation and the you have to push and where's your willpower and all the mean things, all the mean girl voice of you have to lose this weight. You cannot carry this weight around. It's a reminder of what you don't have. And it doesn't feel like it's me. That was not great. I know I damaged my heart. I got very thin. It was not, as a mom, a horrible, horrible example to my kids of how to care for yourself. Horrible. But I was still not in that self-love space. I was still mad. And then my husband's vasectomy failed. And even though we were cleared and we were pregnant again, and that made me even more mad. I am setting myself up for failure. That was huge. So he's here. He's amazing. That took a minute. I had surgery. We were done having babies. And then I was like, oh, I have this body. what am I doing with this
What am
body?
I left with?
And I, coming from the history that I come from, and so at the same time as this is all happening, my mom starts to get sick, and she died from COPD, but it was 5 years of in and out of the hospital. And here comes COVID, and my dad's dementia is getting worse. And she was supposed to care for my grandma, and I'm now caring for my grandma. And we're homeschooling, and I'm running a trauma center for kids and expected to grow that. And I can do responsibility for everybody else. But now you want me to be responsible for my body, for my health, for who I'm taking care of everybody else. Who's going to take care of me? I know how to do it for everybody else. It's expected I do it for everybody else. I don't have it in it to do it for me. I'm tapped out. I'm done.
Well, and it
And so
would,
Makes
then
sense.
to say, like, let's go find somebody that I can be like, this is where I'm failing. Help me out.
Right?
And I'm going to trust you to not make me feel even worse about everything that I've already put myself through.
And you can see how that'd be so easy
well, and
for
there's
that to
two things
happen.
you can see. First off, thank you for sharing that so openly and being able to just bring other people through someone who is on the other side of processing that all, because obviously to be able to share it openly requires a lot of work through the process, and it's a reflection. And hopefully
Yeah.
someone can see for themselves that there might be growth on the other side and there might be something positive on the other side. But you can also understand too how everything that you went through led you to the point where your body was so unwell, right? Like if you think
So
of
much
like you think of the
stress.
stress and the trauma, and you think of just the not just the physical stress, but the psychological stress, the emotional stress, everything you're going through, it would make sense that you might arrive at the point where you have Hashimoto's. It would make sense. And to come back, you have this experience where you've been fit in the past and you've been healthy, and you're the one that has an identity wrapped around pushing yourself too, and you know how to get it done. Having to divert that, it would require vulnerability or trust. And so for you though, when you go through this process of, okay, I am going to be vulnerable and ask for help, how did you start to make progress? What does the first month of change and getting your bearings back actually feel like? Because that's the point where I think a lot of people find themselves where it's almost like a baby deer or like a giraffe, right? You're kind of navigating, walking again.
Yeah.
What was the first, let's say, 1 to 2 months or even 3 months of starting to take care of yourself in a different light? How did that feel? And how did you start to get to the point where it became more normal? What was that like for you?
I will definitely say Lindsay did an amazing job. When I talked with her, she was like, we could work together, but I have this other person that will do a great job educating you and walking this path with you. And beautifully, she was like, but it's a guy. Are we comfortable with that? So that right there made me feel like, okay, she sees me. So that was huge. So thank you for that. And then Stephen just like right away it was, let me ask you how you want to do this. Let me ask you what's most important for you. Like it was so collaborative, and not once, not ever once. And I told him, I said, as soon as my head puts you into an authority place, I'm probably going to ghost you. I'll keep paying you, but I'm going to disappear. He was like, we're not doing that. Um, I've always been in the driver's seat, and it's always been what's going to work for you? What's going to fit for you? We're doing 1%. To move out of that all or nothing thinking of, well, if I don't work out in the morning, there's no point because then I've already eaten for the day and it's a waste. I'm like, Steven, I'm working out and it's 10:30 at night. He's like, you're getting in your workout. If that works for you, that's fine. I don't care. I'm like, okay. Stephen, I've been logging and you gave me great ideas for meals to give me examples of what it is I should be like moving towards and what healthy proteins are and what's going to be good for like inflammation for my body so that that's not happening. And I ate a cupcake because it was my son's birthday. So I didn't log my food. And he's like, log your food. I don't care. I want you to eat a cupcake except for what it does for your body. Your body doesn't like cupcakes, but that's not why you can't eat a cupcake. He's like, that is a normal part of life. It wasn't, you can only eat
Mm.
these clean foods and that's it, and or otherwise the program's not going to work. And it was, what's your goal? How can I support you with your goal? I travel a lot for my kids' sports. I was like, I have to eat at a gas station, like legit. And he's like, okay, text me, show me pictures. I'm going to tell you what to get. Or we're going on a family trip. Okay, where are you going to eat at? What's the restaurant like? I'm like, you're not going to tell me that I have to pack all of my food for the whole trip so I can stay on track? Or I'm going to go on a family vacation and there's no internet. I can't, there's no working out. There's no like, what do I do? He was like, oh, do your stretches. Do your stretches because then when you come back, you'll still be in your routine. You have not completely taken yourself out. Like, here's the consistency. He's like, I don't even care if you don't do a workout all week. I mean, I want you to with goals, but can you just do your stretches every day? Can you just start your day or have some part of your day where it's your stretches, even if it's between clients? Because I kept telling him I feel so reactive in my schedule. I feel so pulled by everybody else. And he's like, your stretches are yours. If it's, you can't do it before you leave the house, if you have time in between clients, do your stretches. If it's at night before you go to bed, do your stretches. Have something that grounds you, make it yours. I was like, oh, it's not all or nothing. None of this is all or nothing. It's okay, well, you didn't get all of your workouts in this week you wanted to. That was your goal for the weekend. Why not? What happened? What can I do to help you do this differently? What's the awareness around it? Not the shame or the guilt or the, oh, you failed or nope, you can't get back on track or anything like that. Like it's always been collaborative and supportive. And he'll point out what I've done well. Like, what? I don't do that for myself. I didn't do anything well. I focus on like what I didn't do.
He's a smart guy.
Yes. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So having that safety, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
been huge. Huge.
Well,
He is probably the first person I've ever done. I've got a lot of mentors and group mentoring. The one-on-one to be able to say like, this is where I feel like I'm not doing well or I'm falling short or I don't understand. Okay, let's talk about it.
what's great
That's
too, what you're
awesome.
describing is you do have the desire to change your body. You do have the weight loss goal. You do, hey, I want to look a certain way, and this is important. And I do associate that this goal is valuable to me, but the approach is not exclusively about how you look. That's a part of the equation, right? It's part of the package when we talk about what motivates us. And obviously, everyone's got their own different reason why, but also what you described is figuring out how to continue to be better throughout your day, continue to anchor in why you're taking care of yourself. It's those small ways of setting your state or setting your health for success that shines through. And I think that that's a big takeaway for people is yes, you can have a weight loss goal and continue to focus on that goal, but it's all the other things that you do in your life that benefit from this that makes it really work long term. Does that resonate or is there something there?
Huge. Yeah, that's huge. And just the added benefits that I can run around and play with my son now when we're at soccer tournaments or where he's like, play soccer with me. I'm not just sitting. Or I'm like, no, I'm winded. I shared like I carried him up, like he's a little over 50 pounds. I carried him up the stairs the other day while we were still talking, and I got up the stairs and I was like, I'm not like on the floor collapsed. This is huge. That was huge. So that whole idea of longevity, the flexibility that I can get up and down off the floor, I can feel so much stronger in my body. And the biggest thing is like owning my body. Like we're working together now. I've noticed after workouts, I'm like, thanks, body. Thanks for us getting through that. I feel like I'm dying. We got through that and it feels good. Like that's I would have been like, you should have done stronger. You should have gone harder. Why didn't we max out here? Like the headspace and the self-talk so different.
Yeah, I want to build off that self-talk idea because the front of this before we hit record, you were talking basically mirroring how you saw yourself through my content, which was like you saw me and thought, "Oh, I'm out of her league. Like I'm too old, I'm too broken. You're 45, you're like healthy, like to the outside eye anyway, like successful, healthy, fit, all the like mom of the year type of person, at least for the outside eye.
Mhm.
But your perception and self-talk around who you were or
Yeah.
how you were or what you were able to do was very different from how you're describing your self-talk now, right? But talk talk about how just that change in how you were perceiving self-care and your habits and your fitness. How has this approach and this change or this level of self-development, if you will, how has that changed your identity from your perspective? How do you speak about yourself differently or think about yourself differently through this process?
Mm. That tired feeling before, like I said, like the brain fog and the just physical, like I was dragging my body around. So to want more for myself, to want other goals, to push myself career wise, I was like, no, I'm gonna have to just be content with this is what I have on my plate, and I have to leave it there because anything at any point now could tip my plate. If my dad needs more, if one of the kids needs more, if my husband needs more, if one of my clients needs more, I, my body can't do it.
Mm,
And so again, to think like, how am I supposed to fit in exercising and nutrition and meal planning and all like, no, no, I have to like hold myself at status quo or I'm gonna fail somewhere. I'm gonna drop a ball somewhere. I'm going to let somebody down, disappoint. And how is that okay to do when I'm saying I did it for me?
mm,
I'm going to take away from you so I can do something for me. In my mind, old mind, very selfish. That is self-centered. That is selfish. There's no way I could ever say that to somebody. I would feel awful.
mm,
Coming to now, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Just even doing stretches and increasing flexibility, just eating whole foods. And again, Stephen was like, okay, so do you sit down and have a meal? I'm like, no, no, I don't sit still that long. It'll be cold before I finish it. He's like, okay, we're going to create healthy shakes. You can take those with you. Those can go to a game with you. Here's protein bars. These are healthy protein bars that your body is going to like that taste good. Let's do that. Those you always have something on hand then, so you're mobile. I'm like, my legit schedule can change completely within an hour, depending on what the evening looks like, or what the family needs, or what catastrophic thing is blowing up. I was like, it's so unpredictable. I don't have a set schedule. So now it's like, oh, I'm equipped. I
mm,
know what to do. And it's that intuitive eating, it's that being prepared. And so that is so empowering. And I'm not taking away. I told Stephen the other day, like one of the kids was like, hey, can you help me with this? Or do you have time? Because are you getting ready to go do a workout? Never before would that have even been, or are you getting ready to go do a workout? And even my husband, I was like, I bet you didn't think I was going to do this for this long. He's like, no, I did not. I didn't think you would stick with this because you'd get discouraged before so quickly that it
mm,
would last maybe a week or two. I'm like, now I'm excited. I get upset if I do miss a workout because I feel so much healthier in my body and I can feel my muscles and it feels so good because I have the right nutrition. I'm fueled correctly. I understand that it is not about deprivation. Like I get in trouble if I don't hit my calories. Not really, but it's here's protein, here's why, here's the calories, here's why. What happens when you don't do that? I'm like, I don't feel good in my workouts. I don't feel powerful in my workouts. So to carry that, like we have a relationship with everything. We're the common denominator.
mm,
This then goes into everything else. I can show up confidently in new spaces. I can show up confidently in my business and say, I'm allowed to want more now. I'm allowed to know that I have the energy to grow this so that I can reach more women and be helpful to more women and not play so small because I don't trust my body. I don't
Yeah.
trust my energy levels. Huge difference.
When it's also
Oh,
learning to
so
trust
good.
yourself, right? It's trusting you. I mean, that's the whole relationship is I say I'm going to do something and I find a way to do it. And if I don't do it, I figure out why I'm not doing it. And then I adjust the strategy or I change the plan or I change maybe the goal at times. And that's what allows me to move forward.
Mhm.
A lot of people struggle though with first accepting what they want and then putting in the work to get it and being patient enough to trust
Gracious.
themselves, right, through the work, right? Especially, I mean, we have had clients on the teams who've lost hundreds of pounds, right? I say hundreds, like 100 pounds, 75 pounds, 90 pounds, really big weight loss goals. And there's always that sticking point too, where it's learning to trust themselves and push for someone who's in that part of their journey where they're like, I do want to do this and I am, changing my approach mentally to be less restrictive and more focused on longevity and health. How would you advise them to maybe push themselves through the discomfort of relearning how to take care of themselves? How would you advise them to maybe look at the work and the effort that they're putting in so it's not just related to the scale, but it's also reaffirming their, say, relationship with themselves and trusting themselves?
That is huge. And I actually just had a conversation with Steven. I was like, I don't set goals for myself.
Mhm.
I have been terrible. I don't even like that word because, again, what happens when I don't meet it? What happens when I've let myself down and I didn't reach that goal? And then what? Now there's more shame and guilt, and I'm going to beat myself up about it because we're all our biggest critics and we're so mean to ourselves. Um, so he just said, we're setting up some goals for next year, and they're going to be a little uncomfortable because you can do that. I'm like, oh, yeah, I can. I can do that. And I think, Lindsay, I've seen a lot of your posts on that mental piece of what happens when you are stuck in the negative. How do you get yourself out of that? What happens when I don't want to, I'm too tired? Having that big why, that strong why, I cannot go back to a place where I feel paralyzed, where I feel like I have no power and I can't move. I felt like I could not move when I was standing there in that food court.
Mm.
To not know what to do, like, no, it's not even where at one point, if I looked at the scale every morning and then my mood was decided because of the scale, it's not even that. It's I have to live in my body for the rest of my life. How am I going to do that? I'm here. I'm here on earth. I'm moving around. I'm making this happen. Do I want to do it where I'm happy and I feel like I have a say and I'm in some type of a control place, or even if it feels out of control, I can get back there. I know how to get back there. I have that power. I've taught myself that. And it is going through those. I don't want to. I don't feel good. I pulled something. Okay, then you're not doing all or nothing. Do a stretch,
Do something.
do something easier, do something lighter. Like it doesn't have to be that critical all or nothing. I have no other choice. It's what can you do small then?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think
Be
that one of the things I tell people when they're on the team is the best thing you can do when things aren't going well is not make them worse, right? And so it's even to that extent. It's like if you feel like you're veering off the path, it's finding the small wins that get you back on the path. And sometimes that's hitting pause and not continuing to push yourself out of the way, right? And almost exacerbating that feeling of unworthiness with more behaviors that make you feel unworthy.
yeah.
It's continuing to say, hey, how can I get myself to be more in alignment with where I want to be, even if that's small?
Yeah, what I hear and would reflect to somebody listening who kind of following through your story is that your transformation, if I were to give it a nutshell, put it inside a nutshell, right? is you went from I'm overwhelmed and your perception of taking care of you was I'm taking away from others. Like there's this small pie of Robin and it's already being eaten by everybody else, so I can't take any for myself, which anytime you did try to take care of yourself, you wound up discouraged and falling off. You couldn't figure it out, hitting walls. And your other side is I'm equipped, I'm worthy of taking care of myself. I need to. Like I can do it, much more empowered, and you feel excited and energized for everybody else. So it actually gave you more to pull from. It wasn't just a pie that was already expended. It was like, oh, actually, I giving more to me actually increases the pie. So I
A
have more
hundred
energy to give.
percent. Yeah,
Is
I
that
was the mom that would flip off the airline people. Not really, but in my brain when they're like, put your mask on first. I'm like, do you see how cute my babies are? No, no, theirs first. This really has like flipped it to where like I'm not resentful of you people needing me. I'm not resentful of being pulled because now I know like, nope, okay, I can do that, but I have my stretches. That just that alone for everybody, it's something different, but like that's powerful. Like, nope, I can come back to me. I can claim time for myself. Even if I don't get through the whole set of stretches, I can just do half of those. That's mine. Now I can respond. Now I can decide how much energy I want to put into something and how much I still need for me because it truly is that like I was pouring from empty. I was reacting to everything. I couldn't really respond to things. I
yeah,
couldn't take pause because I didn't have even that much energy in me to do that. It was like, let's address everything and get it out of the way because I need to go rest because my body's tired.
And I think what people can also hear from that is in between those 2 points is all the work that you described throughout this last 45 minutes. Because everybody comes in and says, I want to feel energized and excited. I want to feel great. And it's like, that does feel like it's hundreds of miles away. In between here and there is not let's go balls to the wall and attack everything because that's what you've always done. And that's what always leaves you tired at the end of the day and feeling like you're overextended. It's like you said, it's those little tiny uncomfortable commitments and changes. Starting with being open to help, sure. Investing in yourself, absolutely, sure. But then every day it's like make that little 30-second window to like breathe and or stretch. Like you have to make those micro decisions differently because then, like you said, you retrain people how to treat you.
Huge, huge. Like the world meets you with where you're at. So if you're like, I'm willing to overextend myself, the people who want that, they will find you. Like
Yep.
it helps you establish like that sense of like I did not like this word before, but like that responsibility for yourself. You reclaim it, you make it yours, and it's like I know how to do it for everybody else, but now like this is my life. This is my body. This is what I am creating for myself, and I have to be able to live in it. I have to be able to work with it, and
Mhm.
I will tell on myself first. I've done all the yo-yo diets. I've done all the all or nothing. And I know at the end of the day, not sustainable. I'm not going to be able. So what's the next thing I have to find? What's the next thing I have to put myself through? What's the next thing I have to shame myself through of like do it harder, deprive more, feel worse because you have to fit in these pants or you want to prove that you can do this. Not sustainable. I was like, I'm done. I have to be able to live with myself and know it's something that I can do for the rest of my life. And I'm all about walking the talk. So if I'm not willing to sit in discomfort and look at myself and figure this out, I can't ask my clients to do that. I can't ask my kids to do that.
Yep, that is true.
So I have to be able to say, like, this is what it looks like, sounds like, smells like, tastes like this is how it functions. And it is knowing like you're not going to self implode if you're uncomfortable. That's information gathering. You have a coach. What does this mean? Why am I doing this? How can I learn something from this so I can just keep going? Because none of us live in like we don't learn anything in comfort.
So true.
Yeah.
There was, yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
what I was going to say is, and there's a couple different points as we're tying down. I wanted to ask this briefly. How long have you been doing this? Because I think that people also think like I've been doing something. It doesn't matter if you're working with us or you're just on a journey, right? But they think, oh, well, I got to be instant, right? And now the good news is there is an instant boost from the habits you put in place, right? You take a cold shower one morning and you automatically feel better, right? It's instant. It is instant. You get an extra 2 hours of sleep some night or an hour of sleep. It is instant. You work out, you feel instant. But obviously, the progress that's what people are tracking might take months or weeks or whatever. How long have you been on this path of taking care of yourself so people can also zoom out of the instant gratification mindset and see, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, there is more to this than just a week, a month, couple
I
days.
started the first week of May because I met with Lindsay and I was having my birthday and I was like, no, I cannot start this on my birthday week. Hold on, I will already self-sabotage. So I started the first week of May. Um, so yeah, down 15 pounds, but that not even like again, not the main focus. Like I'm fitting in my clothes that I have not fit in since whew, I don't know when. The strength though, just the strength. I can do stuff around my house that I enjoy doing, and I can keep up with my kids, and I have time then to go be with friends, and I can show up with so much more energy for my clients. And now my business, to take my business to this next level that I've always wanted, but I did not know how because I did not have the energy. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the like, how do I connect all of this and see that it's actually possible?
Mm.
So different. So different.
I love that. That's a really great
Yes.
explanation. I think that kind of will help people see the picture long term. One tie down question I had, and this might be a big question, so if we need to uh,
I want you to ask it.
bring it back, then we can always extend or anything like that. But one of the things that people talk about is, or maybe not, maybe a better way to say this is one of the challenges that people who go through trauma experience is that their story about their life becomes a part of their identity, and that identity keeps them from wanting to change or seeing that there is an opportunity to change. And they associate this meaning that things can't get better with what they've experienced in the past. So, as a therapist and as someone who is walking people through these, let's say, experiences that they've had and helping them shift, what advice might you give someone who recognizes they've gone through challenges, recognizes they've gone through traumatic experiences, and they want to change their story? They're just not sure how.
I think for two things come to my mind. For a lot of the clients that I work with, first off, explaining very simply to them because it's hard to wrap your brain around this body that you're stuck in. You've lived with you for your whole life, that your stories aren't you. Like, has anybody ever said to somebody, it's actually not you? You were not born into this world with your stories. Unfortunately, you have gone through things, you have been around people who maybe were not healthy that have helped form your identity, which is very natural as a child, where your cognitive abilities are the very black and white and that ego-centered, everything is about you. It's supposed to be. You don't gain that other perspective until you start hitting close to puberty of, oh, there's more outside of me. I can put myself in somebody else's shoes. It's hard to look at other humans, especially authority figures, as humans, that they might be doing it wrong. They might be a little bit broken. They might not know things. They might misunderstand. They have histories and beliefs and storylines that you don't actually have to believe. You don't actually have to prescribe to, and you don't have to align with or continue a loyalty to. So that might be teachers, it might be coaches, it might be your parents, it might be siblings. You're allowed to actually have your own identity. You're allowed to change it at any time. Knowing that you house all the identities and that you're the only one that can actually be proud of what you're growing into. and know what you do want, nobody can know that for you because that's still going to be through their lens. It's still going to be through their glass ceiling that you potentially can break right through within a moment as long as you're willing to see yourself. You have to give yourself that permission to see yourself and work with somebody. Gosh, self-help therapists, they're so easily accessed now. Everything's online. It's not, I have to go and spend time and drive to and all of that. Like, have somebody outside of you help you to see you. And that is my favorite thing to do, where women come in and they're like, I'm broken because here's my story. I'm like, you're so far from broken because you're actually in here. Broken is I've given up completely. There is no hope. I'm not even looking. When you say, I need help, you're so far from broken. It's incredible. You're so ready to be like, I have to do something. And to be in that space, like, you're brave, you're vulnerable, you're saying, I want more for myself, and you're betting on you. So far from broken. So even if you're just looking to be like, what else is out there? Like, already give yourself like this huge pat on the back or hug or high five or whatever it is. Like, that's massive because that's so scary for people. Most people are very comfortable in what they know, and they think that's where they have to stay. And it may be an identity that came from somebody that set them up in middle school. You're stuck when you're young. You don't get a choice. Here's your family. There needs to be a system that operates for everybody. You get a role. You might be the peacekeeper. You might be the leader. You might be the responsible one. That's what functions in that family. Middle school, you're stuck with who you're stuck with. High school, all the same. But once you leave that, it's wide open now. This is yours. You are completely responsible for all of it. You get to be whoever you want to. And that means giving yourself permission to separate from the stories, to separate from the other people, and like look at yourself. So empowering. It's like freedom.
It is. And what I hear too is it's focused on the future versus the past.
Yep.
Right? It's acknowledging where you might have been, cherishing what's good about it, learning what you need to learn from it, or just deciding that it doesn't serve you anymore. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's separating and saying that you are a human who can have an unlimited potential in the future. You don't have to be limited by what you're experiencing. I think that's so key. I think it's so beautifully said. So thank you for that.
And I have a question for you off of that, and then we can close. But I love this little segment of talk with therapist Robin. How far do you think people need to go into the why? Why do I feel this way? Why have I all these stories? How far into it do people need to go to move forward?
That is a great question. I would say okay. Yep. It depends on the person, literally. Like, I'm the person, you can't just say, do this, and I'm going to do that. I have to know the why. I have to anchor it in so that it does apply to every area of my life. And because I am who I am, I want to be able to teach it then.
Mhm.
I want to use it for transformation. So for some people, some of my clients, it's not. I just had a huge session with a lady this morning. She was like, this one thing is like triggering me. Okay, why? Right away, we were able to take it back to middle school, an event in middle school. Okay, let's process it and be done. That then bleeds out into every other area after middle school that this similar feeling has happened. It's all done now. Like, that's why I love what I get to do and doing the trauma work and working with EMDR. There's lots of different modalities, but like with that one, it's like, okay, let's quick go back. Where's the memory? Where's the emotion? Let's hit that, because then as soon as your brain knows what to do with that, everything else then that feels the same that you've experienced, it's all done. It makes sense now, and you can let it go. It's not yours anymore. So the why is, we don't need to deep dive. And honestly, it's re-traumatizing to talk about it and not process it at the same time.
Mm.
If you're working with a professional that is telling you, just tell me your stories, and we're not doing some type of modality to process, that's unethical. You're re-traumatizing. You're opening all that back up, laying it on the table and say, okay, now what? See you next week. I do not do that. in my experience with all of my clients, if that's what we're working on, we're done in one session. Let's go. And if your brain's bringing it up, it's ready to do it. It's not you're failing and you need to shove it back down. It's like your brain feels like it is safe enough and it is ready and it is strong enough to let's address it.
Mm.
So the why is that you need to just figure that out so you can completely move forward and shift. Fantastic. But if that's not what your brain needs, and it's more of like, oh, I need a direction because I didn't have a direction. I didn't know what was possible. I didn't know what food to eat. I didn't know how to fuel myself. I didn't know having energy was possible. If it's just the educational piece, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need stories.
Mm. That's a great
I love
answer.
that.
Great answer.
Fantastic. So a few questions more about you and then we'll jump. What is one book that has had the greatest impact on your life?
Mm. I would say my biggest pivot book was Letting Go of Shame. And I recommend that a lot to my clients because just even in the intro, it differentiates so beautifully the difference between shame and guilt.
Mm.
And that's massive.
Who is the author?
It's Potter Efron. It's a couple that did it, and it's not on audio because there are questions that are meant at the end of every chapter for you to consider. But it does an amazing job of educating the difference of where shame has shown up in our lives, in the educational system, in religion, with our families, with whoever, like, and how big of an impact that has on us, and we don't realize that. And that was a massive shift for me of like, oh, so much of this that I've carried that I thought was mine because I felt guilty about it. I was made to feel guilty about it was actually other people's and it was shame. And a lot of times it's a control tactic.
Mm.
Makes sense.
Excellent. We'll link it.
Yeah.
Second, what is your perfect day? Like 10 out of 10 day for Robin. What's like paradise day?
Mm. Watering my plants, feeding the birds, quiet time in the morning with some coffee, doing my stretches, being able to serve my clients. Um, huge, huge. I feel so blessed that I like am in a place in my life where I get to do, I get to live my purpose. Um, being with my kids, watching them with sports, um, and having time with my husband and then all of our pets. We have 9 pets. Love my pets. They're all naughty little pets. I would not have it any other way. But just like that freedom. I'm choosing my schedule. I'm choosing where I want to spend my energy, and I get to celebrate the people that I care about and like are choosing and getting to be in my life, and I get to help.
Love that.
Beautiful.
And lastly, I think I know the answer to this, but what is the one habit you need to have in your day to feel like you can conquer it?
Either definitely the stretching or knowing like my meals where I'm like so excited because I know what to eat and that I can eat and that I have taken care of myself. Either of those because they both really feel like self-care for me and me deciding like how to move through my day.
Love that.
I knew it. I knew stretching was going to be one.
It's gonna be in
Yes.
there. I love that. It's amazing.
Where can people connect with you, learn more about your service, learn more about your work, and just connect with you to
Yes,
talk about the
definitely. My
podcast?
website, robinlhausercoaching.com. Forming a women's group online, and we're going to work on topics every month. So excited about that. I'm on Psychology Today. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all the things.
I love it.
Definitely through the fitness project.
You can find us through that
Love it.
avenue.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story and so many encouraging words. They were like either music to somebody's ears who are listening or just like absolute life you just poured into people. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, definitely both of you creating this space. And like you said, Brian, at the very beginning, like it's not about just being a trainer. It's not just about your body. It's the way that you guys show up and run and present and are in all the spaces. It's the whole person. It's the body, the mind, the spirit, and that is so different and so amazing, and definitely huge in that sense of where you say we can change you in all the areas, like legit, yes, because it's so encompassing. So thank you for doing the work that you do and for offering what you do to everybody.
Oh, thank you. We're
It's
really
a
blessed
pleasure.
and just really grateful that we've been able to impact you and that Steven's been such a great fit, right? Steven is the man. So
Yes,
what a
yes,
blessing.
yes, definitely.
But
Excellent.
thank you all for tuning in. We hope you got a lot of value here. Let us know in the comment section below what you loved about this podcast, what your big takeaway was. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, screenshot this, shout us out on Instagram. Let us know what your takeaway was there too. But thank you so much. And now go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.
Cheers.